The definition of financial freedom is available to you today because it's not the typical definition, which says I have so much money in an account that I don't have to work the rest of my life. Because for 99.9% of America, that's just not feasible because we're going to live till we're 120, 130 years old. Our expenses triple every 30 years.
Wow.
Triple. You spend 100 grand today, in 30 years, you're going to spend $300,000 and it's going to be for the exact same lifestyle. So it's uber important that we understand a definition of financial freedom that we can grasp today so that we don't feel like it's an impossible task. And that is when I know how to create value, I am financially free.
Kim Butler, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Thank you, Tony. Such a fun thing to do.
Yeah, so let me tell you about Kim. So Kim is author of the whole Busting Lies series, right? And so today I want to talk about our latest two books because I had the pleasure and the privilege of writing a foreword on one of them, which is the Busting the Budging Lies. Okay.
Yes. Then, now it says by Curtis May as well as by Kim Butler.
There you go. So how great is that? And then she's got Busting the Scarcity Lies, which just recently got released, at least on Kindle and on Audible. And so I want to talk about both of those because and you know, the 7 principles of prosperity. Like Jim Rohn says he would say that most people don't have a money problem, they have a philosophy problem. And what I see when I see your clips is really you can be technical, but you're very, let's talk about your philosophy about how you handle money. And you bring Todd in for the details, right? So we're the opposite because you're like a quick start. So she read my Colby, right? So we had an event about 5 years ago, and she did our Colby KLBE scores, and we had to walk around with them on our little lanyards. And mine's a 7544, right? So I was like, and you broke down to me what a 7 was. I was like, all right, well, that explains a lot since like elementary school, right? So where I would like, nerd out, and within weeks, I'd read every book in the library on whatever topic it was. And so I thought everybody did that. I said, no, Curtis, that's unique to you. So Kim, you talk. So let me give you all a little background of why having Kim is so important in my show. When I started out, I was like Dave Ramsey on steroids, right? When I first got into the business, I was with a company that specialized in bottom investor difference. And they said, you got to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Okay. So I read it. Then I read the bibliography. Then I bought, what was that album? Choose to Be Rich.
Yep.
And there's Kim Butler. There was the accountant person who I can't think. Yeah, Danny Kennedy. And then I almost don't say the real author, but
Sharon
Lecter, right? Talking about the paper stuff. So that's where I heard you. And then you had a cassette tape, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. And you said, now, I think I took it out of context, but then I'm still like, term insurance is the end all be all, whole life is the devil. And you said, rich people do not buy term insurance, is a waste of money. I was like, what? I must have played that cassette 50 times trying to get the context. And and then somehow I got Become Your Own Banker in my through the email. I didn't even know where it came from. I printed it out, and I had it in a little binder, and then I have been following you ever since, because that you kind of rocked my world, and then you set me on my fact find path down that rabbit hole, and I got red pilled, and I haven't been the same since. So Kim, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It is such a joy to do. And holy cow, I haven't thought about the Choose to Be Rich series for a long time. And yet it's such that was really some of Kiyosaki's most valuable work, I think. And it really didn't get out there very much because of the format that it was in. He's got another book that I was involved with called Who Took My Money? I don't even know if it's around anymore.
Yeah, that's one of my top 4.
It's
right after Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, which is my favorite. Then it's Who Took My Money, where he gets into velocity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's brilliant. Like, yes, 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 yes. So that was
Well, and what's also fun about this space, especially the very sentence, rich people buy whole life insurance, Tom Wheelwright, who is the now CPA of Kiyosaki, whereas before it was Diane Kennedy, Tom purchased her practice.
oh,
And I
that
was
will happen.
in the
Okay.
middle of helping them with all of that. It was a super cool time. And not, I didn't help, I just answered some questions.
Right.
But anyway, Tom has another great line that you and your listeners will really enjoy, which is if you want to turn an expense into an asset, buy whole life insurance. Because term insurance is an expense, and
Right.
we need to be super clear, right? Term insurance is crazy valuable. You should have it. It's something that I owned just until the last few years because my kids are all grown and gone now. So I've either converted all of my term insurance or I've canceled it. But term insurance for the young set, super, super important. Nevertheless, it
Right.
is an expense.
Right.
Whereas whole life insurance can be an asset. And Tom Wheelwright, who publicly has stated, so I have no problem repeating that he owns whole life insurance. He has very specific reasons for owning it. He knows obviously exactly what it's doing on his balance sheet.
Right.
And that's a good thing for people to just have in their back pocket to beef their confidence up about a product that, holy cow, I mean, your comment about it is the devil. I swear people think that.
I listen, that's how it was presented in, oh, you're evil and you're ripping people off and you're this and that. And so from whence I came from, that I'm now completely 180'd, but you don't know what you don't know. And so if you will, Caleb has a saying, Caleb Williams, he'll say, if they knew how it really worked, there'd be lines around the corner to get it. I think he got it from somebody else. He got it from Nelson, but that's
That's a Todd Langford
oh, is
line.
it? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So here he goes. So I heard Caleb say it. So he got it from Ty. That is funny. That is
How
okay.
fun.
So now let's talk about tell them. Let's start with your new book. I'll and you outline the 7 core principles from shifting to a prosperity mindset. Could you briefly describe the principles and explain how to help individuals in your mind overcoming their limiting beliefs? Because I think they stay stuck. One of the things you say in the 7 principles, scarcity thinking keeps you stuck.
Yep. Yep. So I even have to find my own cheat sheets. That's a heavy duty book. And I am so grateful for my co-author, Kristen Huggins, that helped me write it. She was instrumental in pulling together a lot of disparate thoughts.
Yeah.
And you've done that too, because you've pulled my original 7 principles of prosperity, which I wrote, I think, in the late 90s in an effort to help. And you said it so well, with this overarching philosophy, because we deal with money on a day-to-day basis, and that's fabulous. But if you don't have that overarching philosophy down first, then it's hard to know what to do on the day-to-day.
Right.
And the philosophy, of course, starts with our mindset. So this is my most recent book. Sometimes I think / wish it had been the first one I'd written, right?
Okay.
Because this is so important. Understanding that so much of our monetary limitations are in our thought or possibly in our relationship with money. And I'm no, psychologist, I
Right.
think is the right word. But I absolutely do understand that it's got to start up here. So these 7 principles of prosperity, which each just have one word and then a corresponding description, which you've already given a couple of, which is great. I'll fill it in.
Right.
The very first one is think, THINK. And I'll tell you just a quick backstory too. The rebranding that I did about 4 years ago, I think. I had been one company for a long, long time, and I needed and wanted to rebrand for the next 30 years because it was time to just have a refresh.
Right.
I couldn't believe that the URL Prosperity Thinkers was available.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Over the course of a weekend, I bought over 100 URLs.
Wow.
Because URLs, everything, right? Your website domain.
Right.
every one that I thought of, I grabbed it because I just knew how important it was. And I had a marketing team with me at the time, and they really, really, really wanted me to use Kim Butler Life. And I did not want my name on the website in that way. I am a big believer in it's a team gets things done.
Right.
And I really, really wanted to have the team profiled. And it was very important to me to not have Kim Butler be on the URL. I probably still am maybe doing something with Kim Butler Life. I don't even know, but it's not what I wanted as primary. So thinking from a prosperous mindset, hence the term prosperity thinkers, which is my current company, is the first principle of prosperity. And so we've got these 7 principles of prosperity. Inside the book, we outlined things in a little different way. So let me grab my little cheat sheet here, because chapter number 1 is
Okay.
proactive gratitude.
Okay.
So, principle number 1, think from a prosperous standpoint. How do you do it?
Right.
Chapter number 1, proactive gratitude. And that means that we show up, we bring gratitude with us, and we give gratitude before we expect anything.
Mm. That's deep. Yeah. That's work too. And I know we would start when we would go to, we were down in, where were we at? Park City, and we would start our meetings off with positive focus. And what are you grateful for? And that's how I got to become good friends with Brian Reppel.
Oh, fabulous.
At your thing. Like, I knew him from Circle Wealth, but I didn't know him. And then we were talking. Somehow we got on some nerdy conversation about Austrian economics. So when he said what was he grateful for, he says, I'm grateful for Curtis May. We just had a 30-minute conversation about Austrian economics, and it's rare that I can have those conversations. Like, people don't expect me to know that stuff. And so I can totally surprise people and nerd out on that kind of stuff. So I like to be, but just gratitude in the sense that, hey, I try to do it with our kids, like, you're in scarcity or in the, as Dan Sullivan would say, in the gap.
Yeah.
And you have to work hard at, like, do you find yourself like in the gap and you got to remind yourself, hey, what's good about this? What am I grateful for? And how do you flip that when you're having not a great day?
Yeah. How do you do it? And then I'll share with you some of my favorite ways.
So I don't know that I do. No, I what I do is I've seen people that when they're bummed out, they have negative response. They smoke, they drink, they do stuff. And I've saw that growing up. So I work out, I go for a walk. I will listen to Jim Rohn. I'll walk and listen to positive stuff. Right, at the same time, because I found that especially working out, if you move a muscle, it'll change your mood. And so I try to get moving. So that's kind of what I do.
I love it. My favorite is jumping jacks or grabbing my little rebounder, the little tiny trampolines that
Okay.
you have. And you said it so well, just getting our bodies moving shifts us out of that super fast. I will also highly recommend pets, PETS, because for a long time we had a Great Dane that hung out in the office, and she was a super easy solution to feeling, bummed out or afraid or myriad of things.
Yeah,
And you
and my
said
dog.
it so well. It takes
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, look, I got my cat is sitting here on the off camera looking at me. Right?
I love it. I love it.
He's
Yeah,
like,
that's
we have
fabulous.
3 somehow. And somehow they all end up here in my office at various points. I think they're waiting for me to feed them, but they seem to want to hang out near me. And so my wife calls me the cat whisperer. Right? So,
Well, I've got 2 in the garage and 2 in the barn, so we're covered.
okay, there you go. So all right, so positive thinking.
Yep, that's
And
number 1.
so what's number, maybe go to 3. I want them to read the book though, but we can go maybe
Absolutely.
more.
So really the first 3 are fabulous, and then they can read the book for the second 4.
Okay.
So the second principle is to see, SEE, as in like see things from a big picture perspective, because with our finances, sometimes we want to get a little too narrow and we're looking at things in a vacuum, and our finances don't exist. They don't function that way. In the book, interestingly enough, chapter number 2 is use and see money as a tool.
Mm.
And so a lot of people talk about money as a unit of measurement, and it
Right.
is clearly that. But I love the use of the word tool. I think it's a little more active and much more implying that us human beings have got to get in there and do the work also. I mean, we were put on this earth to serve.
Right.
And so we want to be serving and understand that when we create value in the world, and this is fabulous Dan Sullivan thinking, then we can expect to get paid for that value, and that the tool of money facilitates that exchange in a way that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. A super fun experiment to do with kids is when you have just 2 or 3 kids and they want to get something done, have them trade for things like, oh, I'll vacuum for you if you'll walk the dog for me, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then let that keep going until they get to a place where they get stuck because they can't trade because the things are so disparate.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe somebody needs the dog walked, but somebody else needs to buy a present for their friend. And so I guess they could walk the dog and get paid, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the point actually right there, right? They need to get paid.
Right.
Money as a tool to get stuff done. And so just shifting our thought around that, and the very specific action item that I will share is, if you are feeling stuck with money, and I have been there a very specific time I'll share in a minute, it is to give just a little tiny bit. And if you're feeling stuck with money, seeing it first and being grateful for it, which means maybe what you need to do in the give department is just be grateful when you pay your bills. Like if you feel like there's absolutely no extra dollar to give anywhere,
right,
then just be grateful. Oh my gosh, the electric company, so cool. They're heating my home, they're cooling my home, whatever. Oh my gosh, my car payment, this is so valuable. There was a time in my life when money was very stuck. So like chapter 7 and the 7th principle of multiply, it wasn't happening. And so kiva.org was new at that time, which is a micro loan facilitator in mostly third world countries. And their minimum gift was $25. And so I popped on there and I gave $25. That's pretty much all I felt like I had at the time.
Right.
Cash flow issues don't go away. They just get bigger zeros on them.
Right.
So I don't even remember the circumstances of that situation, but I know that I was able to move forward at that point. And so that's the kind of thing that you can do if you're just feeling that stuck, is back up and try to see that bigger picture, and then start being grateful for every check or every online transaction that you make.
That's funny. My wife is better than me. And I have to do that. But because there's the biblical part where if you give, that's a wealth principle, right. But also mentally, it's like if you don't hoard it, like if you give it away, mentally, you realize it's going to come back if you don't hoard it. Yeah. And, which goes, one of the principles is multiply, right? Mm-hmm. So so this is like I should be lying down on the couch as you go through this, because
well, and we need to remember it's a cheerful giver, right? That is rewarded. And so that all comes together right there beautifully.
I don't know if I'm cheerful about the electric company, but I'm gonna work on it. Actually, I am cheerful because I have solar. So I'm grateful I have solar. I just wish I could make me be off the grid so I could just supply my own power and not give anybody. So
when you get a minute, 10 minutes to be specific, you'll have to look up on YouTube Todd Langford Solar.
Ooh, okay. I know that's good. I just know him, right? So we will check that out. And so let's go back to, so it's what was the second? It's
Second principle is see, S-E-E,
see.
see the
So
big
let's talk
picture.
about seeing, right? So because seeing from a macro standpoint, okay, and most people are stuck because I try to be a person, a macroeconomic planner, and so people will, oh, tariffs this, tariffs that, the market went down. So, because you can't control. I always tell people, look, we all have a personal economy, which is your production and consumption as a family unit. But the only thing you can control is your production and consumption as a family unit. You can't control the economy at large. But I always, this is something that's been in my head the last week, and I put it out as a thought of the day to our community. And Jim Rome's, it's don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And it's not the winds of adversity blow on us all. The difference is how you set the sail.
Yeah.
And so principles are how you set the sail. Learning new stuff is getting better at setting a better sail. Being gratitude, I guess, is all of it is how do you set a better sail, which makes me think of it when we talk about this. So,
well, I'll give you a Joel Weldon quote, which is he was one of the fabulous speakers and still does MC work and that kind of thing. So there's a recession. You don't have to participate in it.
that's right. I love that. Yep. When COVID, I had my best year up. I mean, every year since COVID, I had my best year, but COVID is one of my best years because I decided not to participate.
Yeah, love it.
You and Patrick taught me how to work online. Mm-hmm. So when the Patrick Donahoe, shout out, we had been online since like 2010.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, everybody else had to catch up because I had been doing this for a long time. And then I realized, okay, my clients aren't broke. I had a lot of essential workers. I had real estate investors, I had preached liquidity, and they were cool, and I sent me more people. I was like, okay, this prosperity economics, I call it principle-based planning stuff works. So yeah.
Yep. In action.
Yeah. And so I think, and that's because people will get stuck. Oh, I don't care. I always tell people, look, I don't care if your candidate won or didn't win. It doesn't matter because, presidents get too much credit. And I don't know if they get too much blame. They definitely get too much credit for so, and, they're only there 4 years. I mean, you got to be here a long time. So I think being grateful and just having an economic principle, because, once I started to get into this world and start to, you read Creatures from Jekyll Island and you start looking at that stuff, you start to be able to see, it's like you can see the cloud storms forming like way before.
Yeah.
And all the distortions happen, you're printing money you wonder why the prices are high. Well, you printed all this money. It's like, so there's cause and effect. And so you can't get your sound bites your knowledge from sound bites on CNN, especially about money. And that's why I like, your books, because it's, you got to bust the lies because it's all lies,
Yes.
And so if y'all can't see, if you're on the video, I put in the background, I've got Perpetual Wealth. I've got Busting the Real Estate Lies, Busting the Interest Rate Lies, Live Your Life Insurance, Busting the Financial Planning Lies. I have all of them. Okay.
Thank you.
And a lot of them are in Kindle because I have immediate gratification, and I'll either get on the audiobook. If I hear about it, I got to get it right now. So when the book came out, I just bought I didn't want to wait for the hardcover. I need it now. So I got my little Kindle. And I want to start, and the scribe where I can write on it and do all that kind of stuff. So anyway,
I love the Kindle system. All of my books are self-published on Amazon, and I actually read Kindle on my phone. I've never had an actual Kindle, and I adore my phone and its ability to provide me that book, especially the pre-order ones. They're so fun because then they pop in like in the middle of the night, usually the evening before they're being released. And I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. Something that's kind of fun about busting the scarcity mindset, we got approved for Amazon's AI Audibles beta.
Hmm.
So Audibles is wonderful. I've read all but one of my books into the Audible system, but as you can imagine, that takes some doing. They are very particular, as they should be, about sound quality and cadence and all the things that you have to have together
Right.
and correct to have an Audibles version of your book. And they were not allowing AI. And then I found, I know that this will be version 1 and I can't wait for version 2, but I found a beta for version 1, which is there were 12 voices that we could pick
Wow.
to do the Audibles version of Busting Scarcity Mindset. This literally came out. The beta was offered about a month before the book. I signed up for the beta. Spencer Shaw, my podcast co-host, alerted me to it. And right after the Kindle version of the book was published, I was able to go into the Amazon system, select AI beta. Yes, I'm approved for it. Here's my code, whatever. I chose voice number 8 of the 12.
Okay.
And so there's an AI voice that's reading the Busting Scarcity Mindset. It was available within 24 hours.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Is it
Now,
out now? Is it?
it is.
Okay.
You can go to Audibles today and buy the Audibles version of Busting Scarcity Mindset in AI voice number 8.
I like people to get both, right? Like I think there's something
Totally.
to listening in and watching or especially if you've got where you can highlight like because whatever I got sold on Kindle when I realized I could highlight and write on it like I did with real books. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, because now I would travel. I'd have 3 books with me. Now I
I
just
know.
boom. I'm because I don't know. I don't need. I still might carry a book because I'm a nerd like that. So but I'm
Yep.
trying to cut down
Yep.
all the crap I can. Laptop. I'm trying not to even take my laptop. Just I'm gonna take my iPad
And
and
your
the
Kindle.
Kindle
Yep. Yep.
and just keep it moving. So that's
Well,
something.
I'm looking forward to version 2, which will be my own voice in AI. Spencer and I have been training Descript
Ah,
for a Kim Butler voice, and
okay.
there will be, as soon as that's ready to go, I will be there. But Audibles doesn't allow that quite yet.
Oh, that's cool. So I want to flip to busting the budging lies.
Sure.
And I always say I was looking when we started talking about this. I want to talk a little about currents and what we're doing with that. But I was looking back at my journal from like 2016, 15 or 16, and I wrote in there that most wealth begins in the mind, but it ends in your wallet, and most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. So I have been thinking about how to incorporate this into my practice for a long time. Trying this software and that software, and but I always felt, but budgeting doesn't work. That's the overall premise. It's like, who wants a lifelong austerity program? So, right, so we talk about that and what all alternative strategies that you like and for managing personal finances effectively and what you're teaching your community and your clients.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you the end of the story is that both Todd Langford and myself, who have 30 plus years of helping people with their personal finances, when we heard about the first version of Currents, which was back in 06, 07,
Oh, wow.
we thought, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in personal finance that we have ever seen. Now, back up, when I first joined Strategic Coach in 1994, I came home immediately back to Colby, Kolbe, as you were saying. My Colby is 4492. I have a background in banking,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that as an initiating quick start with a 4 fact find and a 4 follow through, that I should not be, especially once I learned from Strategic Coach about unique ability,
Right.
doing my own books, right? Because this is pre-internet and online banking did not exist. So I literally, the very first hire when I came back from my very first strategic coach thing, I already had an assistant at the time, was a bookkeeper. And her name is Carrie Putman, and she has been working with me ever since.
Wow. Okay.
And so she handles QuickBooks for us, not only for our businesses, but also for our personal work. She taught me early on, just have QuickBooks for your household, for your personal economy. I love that thinking. And so all during my entire adult life, as I learned and grew and made more and more and more income, I tended to have an increase in income almost every year. I mean, we've had lean years without a doubt, but I did one simple thing, and that was to buy a new whole life insurance policy every 3 or 4 years. Now, along the way, Carrie kept our books. She did QuickBooks for our personal economy, like I said. And so that was a foundational element that was uber critical. But I promised you, Curtis, the only reason that our family has the wealth that it has is because premiums show up as a bill and we pay our bills, right?
Right.
So whether it was monthly or annually or whatever it was, our life insurance policies, plural, premiums, plural, got paid. And so I've got 19 policies on about 8 different people, me and Todd, of course, children, key people, et cetera. Carrie is one of them.
Right.
And we just paid our premiums. Now, fast forward, when I first learned about the first version of Currents, it was wrapped up into a licensing structure that I didn't have access to, so I couldn't do it. And I was chomping at the bit and bugging Dave and Vince, the owners of this amazing cash flow structure that I learned about, to have it be available to us on the outside that weren't tied up in the licensing structure, that had the freedom and capability that you and I have as independent people that help people with their finances. And literally the day it became available, I signed up and I started putting clients on it. And I love it. In fact, I spent, that was maybe 3 years ago, I want to say, the current version, maybe 4, it doesn't matter. I spent a Saturday, and I have not worked on a Saturday in decades, calling some people because it was that important.
Okay. I'm getting there, but there's still, I don't know if we should, I want to talk about this offline or online, but so we talked about in the book, this is what helped me connect the dots when I read the book, because before that I was, I was not officially, but I was doing Profit First, right?
Sure. Profit First for Personal is actually coming out in a year.
Okay. So to me, Currents was that, but when you mentioned it, so what I'll do is I have another tool called cash flow mapping. So I have a tagline that says, tell your money where to go instead of asking where it went.
That's a lovely tagline.
So I kind of, this is where I could, so y'all, this is Curtis getting consulting. All right. So this is, so, where when I'm asking the question, so I have money come into the business, right? And then I will have an income account, my profit, my tax, my whatever, and my operations, owners pay, right? So the way I've been doing it, I take owners pay profits and I move them to Currents.
Yeah, perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And and then I move from Currents to the policies.
Yes, and from Currents to your bill pay account to pay your personal bills.
Right. So I do that. So current flow policy is a capital flow.
Yeah.
And so what I'll put my link to the mini course I have with this, so you can understand what we're talking about now. She's just helping me make sure my head is straight. So, and because what happens is I'll have the book shortly, and I'll make available for you to get the book, and I'll have Kim Butler and Curtis May, foreword by Curtis May. So
Love
that's exciting, right? And but you can get, because they're specific, because I think most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. And if you can't I heard Myron Golden say, I give him credit for his quote. So we have outflows, inflows, and capital flows. But if your outflow is greater than your inflow, then your upkeep becomes your downfall.
Uh-huh. Beautifully said.
And so if you can't spend less than you make, you can't do
anything.
Or you can't do anything. Yes.
Yes.
You can't do how to beat a bank or private reserve, whatever you want to call it, funding whole life, because it's a saving strategy. And that's why, Kim, as I'm working with people, I'm going back to starting with that with everybody, because they don't really have any clarity around their cash flow. Most people, I'm talking about where they make 50,000 or 500. They don't really have you experienced that? How do you get into that conversation with people? What would you say to them?
So I asked the question and I have asked this for years. I just didn't have anything to do with the information. And now I do because of currents.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the question, how much does it take you to get through a month?
Mm-hmm.
And most people have a small assimilation of that dollar figure. It may be a little high, a little low, whatever, but they have a general sense. It's 10 grand, it's 20 grand, whatever the number is. Like we said, right? Cash flow issues don't go away. They just get bigger zeros on them. So start there. Put your income in a separate account, which is what the currents reservoir is for. Please reach out to Curtis and get invited into this amazing space. And then have that reservoir account pay your regular bill pay account, same one you're using right now. You do not have to change anything but your income. All of your automatic bill pay will stay exactly where it is, and live your life, and just work with it for 2 or 3 months. You will fairly quickly see whether, let's say you picked 10 grand a month. Okay. Maybe you've got 2 income sources or 3 or whatever it is. You will fairly quickly see if that's the right amount, and you'll be able to adjust accordingly. Now, there's a couple things that can immediately happen that will help. And the first is if anybody gets a bonus or they come upon a month where there's 3 paychecks.
Yeah.
Because typically the 3 paycheck months only have 2 paychecks worth of bills. Mm-hmm. And that 3rd paycheck right now is disappearing into thin air, or clothes or trips or travel or trinkets or toys or whatever it is that is now gone. And so just that first time with that 3rd paycheck or a bonus, also your higher income people, when they get past the Social Security issues or the 401k issues, in the September, October, November timeframe, those are also extra dollars that will just automatically be collected. Now, for some people, Currents, which is an app plus an account, will not show them much change for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months. Others, they'll see it in the first couple months. Others, it may take a couple years, but you're going to put in the time anyway. So you might as well start today on a structure, app plus account. Information on your cell phone. Your control, not Curtis's, you, the listener, your control, your account, your ability to close it if you don't like it. But why not start today with a structure that will serve you the rest of your life? In fact, it's a debate. Is it more valuable during retirement, or is it more valuable during your working years?
Right.
I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen the other, but so valuable the rest of your life to gain cash flow control.
I think, I was talking to, so one of the things you said, it's a system, but you said another word left.
It's a structure.
A structure, right? Cash flow structure, right?
Yep,
so I was talking to a young lady yesterday, and she's like, well, what did she say to me? She says, well, I already have a high yield account, and I want to be in control of my own money. And I was like, you don't have a structure. Like, you can have that, but it's not about rates of return. It's about your overall philosophy, because what we're trying to teach you is how to separate revenue from consumption.
Yes.
Is basically what it's about, because you're going to spend money, but and you're as you're we call it in IBC the Parkinson's law, right? So your lifestyle is going to go up as your income goes up, and what currents helps you do is kind of Don Blanton used to call it a lifestyle. He doesn't use, he still calls it a lifestyle ceiling, right? Where you create a ceiling and you can still live your best life, but you don't have to, your income goes up and then you don't automatically you buy a bigger house, a bigger car, and you got more debt, you go back to school, you got student loan debt, you got more taxes, and you should be doing better, but you're not, because you're not controlling the cash flow.
Yeah.
And so I got two more questions I want to get. Well, I got you here, right? Is you're an advocate for starting, and I like even in perpetual wealth, like doing family meetings, but you're an advocate for starting financial education at a young age. What are some critical, practical steps that parents can take to instill financial literacy in their children?
My favorite subject, but
Okay.
I've got to say one more sentence about currents.
Okay.
The average currents structure user is saving 23% of their income. Listener, are you saving 23% of your income? If you are, great, keep doing what you're doing. If you're not, ask Curtis to be invited in to the currents structure.
Yes, I'm finding that people that are using it, they're right at 15-20% of their income.
Yeah.
Where's this money come from? Or they'll get their bonuses.
Yeah.
And they drop their bonus in there. All of a sudden their reservoir balance is high, their bills are paid, and it's like, what do I do with this money? So now we're having pleasant conversations like, hey, I've got this money. What should I do with it?
Yep. You got it.
I like those conversations, right? How can we grow what we call them in the system, cash flow engines, which are, buying assets so we can make your money multiply and create cash flow. See, these are the 7 principles. I have to put I had the 7 principles on something. I'll probably put them in as a or a link to them somewhere where they can download it. So you
I love it.
Part of you.
So I'll tell you where. It's prosperityeconomics.org. There are 12 principles on there because for the movement, we expanded it a little bit.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that way people won't get confused, because your clients should be going to you and you don't want them to come to me. Your clients should be buying my books, but they shouldn't be coming to me for help. And so prosperityeconomics.org, they can download the 12 principles and they'll get them and they'll be benefited by them. Now let's talk about those kids.
The kids, yes.
Because they are one of your cash flow engines. And my favorite thing, and I believe that this should start around age 2 or 3, is to develop expectations in the home, provide that child earnings, opportunity, and expenses. So there's 3 E's: expectations in the home, earnings, and opportunities. And this is all actually, I have a Prosperity Parents course, which you could refer people to, prosperityparents.com. And it's powered by the dinner table material that provides guidance on these 3 E's: expectations. So for a 3-year-old, your expectations are going to be that they keep their food in the general vicinity of their placemat, as an example, right? Your expectations could be that they help you unload the dishwasher, right? It's a perfect thing to get a kid started on. It's right down there at their height, and they can help you, with the silverware or whatever. Your expectations might be that they make their bed, right? Who cares if it's a mess? If they just put the pillow and the blanket in the right place, that's a great start, right? Just get that stuff going early. Expectations. Then you want them to have the ability to earn money. Now we're talking nickels and dimes. So what I recommend is you get a jar. It's actually called the quarter system, but you might start with nickels and dimes. A glass jar, maybe plastic would be better, so they can see it, right? You put a few in there, and when they do not do something that you prefer, in other words, when they're bad, right? I think parents don't use that language these days, but then they have to go get a dime out of the jar and bring it to you, and you get to put it in your jar and have your
Oh,
jar very clear and their jar very clear. When they do something that's good, like they earned extra, right? Not the expectations, but they earned extra, then you give them a dime or a quarter and they get to go put it in their jar. It will transform your relationship with your children and discipline.
oh wow, that's fantastic.
Then they
Okay.
have expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So when your little 2-year-old is in the cart at the grocery store and they're grabbing for the greedy gimmies, right? They want the toy, the candy, whatever. You help them understand that this is their expense. And if they brought their jar, or maybe you give them a little coin purse or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, which of course the first time they're not going to have it. Well, you don't have your quarter or your dime or your nickel, so we can't get this piece of candy or this toy that you want. Next time we come to the store, let's remember to bring it. And then you help them, and you help them find something that is, find the penny candy, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
probably a dime now,
Right.
and let them buy that with their own money. That is their expense. So now they've got expectations, earnings, and expenses. And then all you do is you keep up leveling that based on age, so that the more earnings capacity they have, the more expectations they also have in the home. We don't use the word chores. Nobody wants to do chores. And that earnings capacity turns into gigs. So now we are talking a serious cash flow engine, because
Mm-hmm.
those kids can do gigs in the home and earn money, but they can also do gigs for the neighbors and the community and their friends and their friends' family. And they can earn some serious dollars, but then they also have bigger and bigger and bigger expenses.
Yeah.
Might be the special sports shoes, now it's a $20 gift for the birthday party instead of a $5 gift, whatever it is.
25. Yeah. Gift card. They clean up.
Yes,
So,
they do. And I'll tell you, it is night and day when a child takes a present that they have purchased with their money to their friend's house versus one that you purchased for them, which just gets tossed on the
or
table.
cash that than the money, right? To
Yeah.
do that. So I'm like, I have a 13-year-old, and so Natalie, she might be my heir apparent, right? So my oldest is 24, and my Natalie will lemonade stands and making bracelets, and I want to be CEO. It's like, all right, so I've got to flame that, feet, blow on that fire, and
Yeah.
she got 5 little friends about the same age. So I'm going to start before they go away, play and like get them over. They're about 13, 14 now. We'll play cash flow. I'm gonna play
Yeah.
cash flow with them. I want to develop little capitalists at 14 year
Yep.
old to offset the nonsense they learn at school. So the
Yeah.
lack of anything they learn. So I was gonna say Marxism, but I'm not gonna say it. All right. I did. Did that come out? So
I'll send you some information about the 3 E's:
yes.
expectations, earnings, and expenses.
I would love to teach part of multi-generational wealth, or creating a legacy of wealth and wisdom, as you talk about in the book. See, if you just give them money, but you don't give the second generation the knowledge, I know you have too. I've seen people get, I paid death claims of $1 million and the money's gone in 3 years because I couldn't get a hold of them. They weren't listening, or I didn't know the other people. And it's, it's the saying, a fool and their money are soon parted, right? And so either they're underinsured, which I really try to teach the principle of maximum protection, but then it's like, all right, how do you keep this in the family?
Yeah.
How do you, because you can't just, I got kids that are in college. I see my daughter just graduated 2 years ago. And so, what do you say? You can't be a prophet in your own hometown, So I'm telling her stuff. It's like, listen, understand, I make more money than all your professors, so you need to listen to me. So now I get mad. I'll send her videos and she won't watch them. I was like, listen, I know you're on TikTok all day long. Don't tell me you didn't watch this video I sent you 2 days ago. So then I threatened to cut her off. So I'm helping her. I'm subsidizing, her chasing his career in New York City. So I'm like, all right, do your thing. And but I need you to understand how money works. And then I feel like, and she is around me, but you got to catch them young. And
Yeah.
so it goes back to that stuff. You got to build the habits in. You have to feed the fire of one of the things that helped me, Kim, is I heard from a time I was 7. My dad told me, you'll never make any money work for somebody else.
Right.
And so I never got that go to school, get your education, get a good job talk. That was not, my family owned a supermarket. We employed 8 or 10 other people. I
Sure.
signed the front of the check. I didn't occur to me to get a job. I was like, I don't know if I said it, but we employ other people.
Right.
And so it's funny. It's unusual. It shouldn't be, but it's unusual in the Black community when I say that. But I say, look, so I have to preface it and say, look, I'm weird. My family was self-employed, so I don't think I'm not coming down from Mount Olympus. This is how I was brought up.
Yeah.
So when I, realized that, this is my running joke. The NBA was not looking for 5'11" shooting guards. My
Bummer.
junior year in college, I got my insurance license at school, and I've been doing it. This is, I hate to say it, almost my 40th year in the business. And now I always tell my running joke is I had 1 year of experience 13 times. That was so I have to take a few years off because I didn't learn anything because I was typical, as you say, right? And so I was a typical max out your 401k, buy term investor difference. And I think that it's our job as, financial strategists and financial educators is to teach people to teach their kids. Like I try to see that as my job. How can I, help them help? Because in I tell people in Rich Dad Poor Dad, the entire title of the book is Rich Dad Poor Dad, what wealthy people teach their kids that the poor and middle class don't. And I don't think that we have mechanisms like what you just said to do that. And then how can I be a catalyst in making sure that happens, so that that we're building perpetual, keeping the money together, as Garrett would say in his book. See, it's funny. Kim is all of these people you see mentor, right? Garrett Gunderson, Patrick. I would put myself in that. A lot of people, come from that, Kim Butler tree. So,
Well, thank you. And Todd Langford too, because
Todd Langford.
Garrett,
And Truth Concepts, because that gives the numbers.
gotta have the proof.
Mike Weislam, the proof.
Yep.
And which gives you the power, the ability to show up powerfully because you're right. Right. And let me ask you this. I want to maybe end with this because you're not gonna talk to you all day, Kim. But the concept of financial freedom is central to your teachings. How would you define it? And do you have like maybe steps that you like to walk people through towards, figure out what it is? And here's the what did you call it? The prosperity ladder. Yeah, the ladder of prosperity, which is my favorite thing.
So, yes, the definition of financial freedom is available to you today because it's not the typical definition, which says I have so much money in an account that I don't have to work the rest of my life.
Right.
Because for 99.9% of America, that's just not feasible because we're going to live till we're 120, 130 years old. And our expenses triple every 30 years.
Wow.
Triple. You spend 100 grand today, in 30 years, you're going to spend $300,000 and it's going to be for the exact same lifestyle. Okay. So it is uber important that we understand a definition of financial freedom that we can grasp today so that we don't feel like it's an impossible task. And that is when I know how to create value, I am financially free. because if I can create value, I can get paid. And so if you start to teach your children at age 2 or 3 to be a value creator, then they will be financially free.
Because security is the ability to produce. It doesn't lie in a job.
And God put us on this earth to serve.
Right.
Work is not a 4-letter word. And so figure out how you can create value in a way that is near and dear to your heart and is your definition of talent, and
Right.
provide that to your community. And that creation of value and serving will enable you to be financially free. So the latter, just to wrap this up, the second step, and I don't have it in my head either, is ownership. So you can be an employee, but you've got to have an entrepreneurial thinker. You've got to be a prosperity thinker. You've got to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You've got to have an ownership mentality. And so that ownership is so, so critical. And we see it, right? You can walk into a fast food restaurant and you can get that kid that owns his job because he's having fun and he's serving and he's, getting the burgers or whatever. And then you can get that kid that is seriously asleep at the wheel. And the experience is night and day. That's an ownership mentality, and that can start at your very early levels.
And people don't get that it's how you show up that's important. Like you could look, not to call out names, but just you can compare Chick-fil-A staff to everybody else in fast food. They have an ownership and there's some training and philosophy in there.
Training.
It's and it's literally night and day. I don't care if the Chick-fil-A is in the hood. It's still like miles, so you can, it's how do you feel about what you do? And it's training. One of the things I learned from when, I've read more about Dan Sullivan. Anybody that's not a strategic coach, I need to go ahead and join this year. But he says the 2 entrepreneurial decisions are you've got to decide that you don't, what are they? Let me say them right, or you can correct me. You can say them.
Time and effort.
Yep.
Versus risk and reward. So are you going to put in the time and the effort and stay in that economy? I think this is what you're speaking of.
That's the first part of it. Yeah.
Are you going to take the risk to earn the reward, which is the entrepreneurial space? And again, you can be an employee and still be an entrepreneur in your head.
Right.
And consequently be able to infinitely up-level that game, because you can, by putting in more of yourself, which is taking more of a risk,
right,
you can earn a higher and higher and higher reward because you're putting more and more and more in of yourself.
Because money's a result of service, of creating value in the marketplace. So if you can get better at serving people say they want to make more money, but that's really the wrong question. The question is, how can I serve more people? How can I solve more problems? Because the exchange is they value your service or your whatever, your whatever you're solving for them more than the money. So as long as you can do that, you can't make money. And I heard Dan say, if you don't create value for people, you don't deserve any money.
That's right. Yep.
If you don't create value first, and then you absolve anybody else from being able to take care of having to take care of your family. Like I read that in one of I've got a lot of books on him, but basically the 2 entrepreneurial decisions. So I look at that. It's like, all right, I don't deserve any money unless I create value for others. And I'm not going to ask anybody to. Part of the reasons for the show, right? So when we were at the first conference, it was you, Spencer, who's the co-author of the Perpetual Wealth book?
Kate Phillips.
Kate. So it's like, listen, the reason for the show is like, listen, you've got to. I was talking to people where I was saying, listen, you've got to, I hated like victim talk, right? And then I wanted people to, like, if I could like get my own walk on music, I would get the James Brown song, I Don't Want Nobody to Give Me Nothing, open up the door, I get it myself. Because that was my dad's favorite song. That would be my opening music if I could get the rights to it. But that's what I kind of wanted to get across. Like, look, there's stuff out here you just don't know, and the stuff you can do outside of the equity markets. You want to be in your own business. I view your best investment is in you. Your number one asset is you, and then it's or your business, and which we'll call in our system cash flow engines. But that's your first. It's not giving it some fund manager you ain't never met,
right,
as your first choice, and giving up control for the next 40 years. And I love that. Okay, so financial, and so all right, we'll do part 2 one day. Kim, thank you for coming on the Practical Wealth Show. So tell them where they can, any words of wisdom you want to close with, and then tell them where they can find the book, get the game. Not the game. Is it a game? It's not a game. Okay, that's a game too. There's cards. All right, talk about all that stuff. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for offering a last chance for words of wisdom. And it's this: there's never the one big thing. There's never a silver bullet, at least in my experience. It's always baby steps. So please take the baby steps and the next baby steps. That's my words of wisdom. Now, on prosperityeconomics.org, they can get the 12 principles of prosperity with a lengthy description of each one. So there's a summary page and then a lengthy description, because you always got to meet the quick start need and the fact find need, right?
Right. I need.
And then our family legacy game actually goes, it's a little card game. It's super, super simple. And it goes with the Perpetual Wealth books, same green color.
Okay.
These are on prosperitythinkers.com in the shop, and about killed our team to get that game done. But kudos to Teresa Sheridan, who I think you've probably talked to at some point. She was instrumental in getting that game accomplished. And I'm so grateful to have it, because I love to ask people how they learn. And some people learn by getting their hands on. So we had to have something physical. And it's very whole life and foundationally based in that product. So that's kind of fun. All the books are on Amazon, Kindle version, Audible's version, soft copy version. Love, love, love reviews. So thank you, Curtis. I loved our conversation. So fun to talk with you. Thank you for writing a foreword. I want Busting the Budgeting Lies book out there more. And of course, both of us know the creators of the current structure and use it thoroughly for our clientele. But I'm human too. I mean, I'm not perfect at it. I do not have every single client on it, though I would love to. And that's the ultimate goal at some point. But you and I will also just keep taking those baby steps.
That's right. Every day, show it to somebody, and all I can do is lead you to water. So if you're not saving 20% of your income, though, all right, your way might not be working. I'm just saying. # just saying. So Kim, thank you so much. Guys, this has been a wonderful episode of the Practical Wealth Show. And you need to listen to this more than once, because she dropped some gold. I'll try to reference all of the links. We'll put the links in the show notes to get the book, the games, her podcast. Name your podcast. What's your name your podcast?
The Prosperity Podcast, and it has over 600 episodes.
There you go. And so check that out.
One baby step at a time.
One baby step at a time. Kim is the reason I have my show. She guested me on her show. And then I was like, I could do this.
Yes, you can.
And then 5 years later, I have probably 600 and something shows. So it's like I haven't missed a week in 4 or 5 years. So it's cool. So that she gave me confidence to try that, because Patrick said, "Oh, dude, you gotta get a podcast." I was like, "What is that?" And and then I called her. I said, "I got an opportunity to do a radio show. You think I should do that?" She didn't even miss a beat. No, do a podcast. What did she say? What did you say? Podcasts are for people that are future-oriented. Radios for people that are stuck in the past.
You got it.
I mean, she didn't even hesitate. And then I started the podcast, and the rest is history. So, if you're hearing me, if not for her pouring into me, I might not be up here. So I want to give the kudos to my, I don't want to say my elders, but my people that helped me along the way. Actually, I'm older than you, so you can't be my elder. So, and thank you, Kim. So guys, go out there, make it a prosperous day. Be grateful. Start with gratitude and baby steps from there. Thanks, everybody. Do you know where your money's going every month? Most people don't, and that's costing you big time. At Practical Wealth, we help you take control of your cash flow with a simple mapping system. We call it telling your money where to go instead of asking where it went. It's a simple system that shows you exactly how to track, manage, redirect dollars towards building wealth, paying down debts, finding hidden money, and having a clear plan to achieve your financial goals. With cash flow mapping, you're in charge, not the other way around. Ready to get started? Visit practicalwealthsolutions.com or go to the link below. Learn how the cash flow mapping can transform your finances today.